Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Backlot 605 podcast. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Casey Kelderman. Join with me, as always, are my co-hosts Brian Mensing and Sam Lenz.
What's up?
How's it going, boys? You guys ready to talk about Ghostbusters, the remake?
Talk about the greatest horror comedy of all time? Yeah.
We're always ready. Let's shoot for 1984, not 2016.
Oh, I guess we're going for that. We got to hit that one first because this month we are kicking off Ivan Reitman month here on Backlot 605. This episode right here, this is the big one for the month, for many obvious reasons. Ivan Reitman is our man of the month. That's because his kid Jason has a movie coming out. Hey, it's a Ghostbusters sequel, Ghostbusters Afterlife. So we decided let's dedicate an entire month to his father and look at some 80s comedy, some 90s Schwarzenegger, and a football movie, because why not?
Because that's what you wanted.
Hey, I've heard it's sports. Good. We can't have all nerdy things on here. We have to talk about sports sometimes, guys.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
But this week we are talking some nerdy things, and that's why we brought on our guest, because, I mean, who better to have on a Ghostbusters episode than a couple of Ghostbusters themselves? So introducing from the South Dakota Ghostbusters, Brandon and Scott. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. I mean, if we were going to do an episode on Ghostbusters, you guys are the obvious choices to have on this. And
it wasn't even a question. It was a matter of when we were going to do it.
Yeah. Well, and they've been pushing this movie back so many times.
Right. I know. I'm just glad that we are finally going to get it.
Well, I think the first trailer came out like in 2019.
Yeah,
I would say something like that, because it was supposed to be around 4th of July 2020 when it was supposed to come out originally.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this entire episode has actually been that trailer in the making, because we're like, well, when the new Ghostbusters come out, we're going to do Ghostbusters episode, and we'll have the South Dakota Ghostbusters on. It only took us 2 years to get there, but we're finally there.
Yeah, right.
So
I'll take it.
I'll throw it out to either Brandon or Scott. If people don't know what the South Dakota Ghostbusters are, if they haven't seen you guys around town or at like SuperCon or any other events that you guys do, can you guys explain what the South Dakota Ghostbusters are and what it is you guys do?
Yeah, we are a cosplay group, and we dress up as Ghostbusters. We've got a car that's our Ecto SD, and we do charity events. We do, once a month usually in the busy season. COVID has kind of messed that up for the last 2 years. But yeah, we mainly just help raise money for charity as Ghostbusters.
Nice.
Then I'm going to ask both of you guys. I'll throw it to Scott then. How did you get involved with the South Dakota Ghostbusters, and what's your history with Ghostbusters in general?
Well, of course, I don't like to date myself, because actually, I have a fiance, so I don't have to just date myself. She goes with me on dates. But if I was to date myself, it puts me right around that. I was around 1984, 85, those 80s time frames. I was just getting into high school, actually a little before high school, and went to the Madison theater, and I saw Ghostbusters, and I went with my brother-in-law and my sister at the time, and man, it was so cool. I just never seen anything like it. It was spooky. It was funny. It had a lot of your SNL people from that you saw in SNL, which made it even way more cool. You had Dan Aykroyd in there, Bill Murray. And Murray, you always identify with certain people, and Ramis was cool too, but Bill Murray always with that comical. I'm a kind of a scientist, but I'm not. I'm using it for a hustle kind of approach that he had, and I fell in love with it. It had all the cool gear, and there was nothing like it during the time. I like to. It's hard because if you put it against another genre. You can put it up against almost against Star Wars a little bit, because it has that deep-seated root in culture now. And
Yep.
I mean, fell in love with it. And then they came out then later with the toys, and they came out with not a real huge I mean, they had a line of toys, but they kept the production fairly low, and that kind of even transcended more with mainly with that real Ghostbusters, and when they did the animated stuff. That was cool. And then I met Brandon, to keep this somewhat short. Then it's kind of circled around, and I had a son of my own, and I started introducing him to that stuff. And then there was that hype with that was a 2016 movie with the girls. It kind of I mean, it was still cool because it brought back all that stuff that you remembered. You liked it for that reason. The soundtrack was really good. But then my son got into it, and then he started having a lot of curiosity with the history of it. And then I started showing him, much to his mom's dismay. We're divorced, and maybe that might be the reason. I'm not sure. But we think that once he started asking about Ghostbusters and all that, I started introducing him to the original movies. And he would actually, I didn't want to sway him either way, because of course I loved the originals, and he loved the originals. And then Brandon had I don't know how we saw it, but it was a zombie walk that was downtown Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
Inviting. Yeah, it was inviting people to come down and meet him. And my son and I had done up suits to wear basically for Halloween. And we came down there and met Brandon and the group, and it was a really small group at the time. And I'm going to let Brandon take over from here. I mean,
yeah. So in 2016, when the movie came out, I had started a Facebook page before that, because I had heard that every state had a Ghostbusters franchise, and so there's multiple different groups that do the same thing we do, that do charity stuff. And so I had heard that every state had one. South Dakota didn't have one, so I'm like, well, I'm going to start a Facebook page and just see what happens. And so for like a year, nothing happened. There was this like nothing going on at all. And then the new movie came out, and then the documentary Ghost Heads came out, and then people started finding me, and I had a lot of interest through the Facebook page. And so I'm like, well, you guys want to do a zombie walk? And so I got in the car and kind of Ghostbustered it up, and we did zombie walk, and like people just loved us and went nuts for us. And so I'm like, well, I've got some real momentum here. I can do something with this. And so that's pretty much how it started. And then we kept adding people. But yeah, Scott's one of our original guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is so cool, because we see you guys around town all the time. Obviously, SuperCon has always been a big hub.
Right. Yeah, that's like
you
our
guys
biggest event. Yep.
So, that's really cool, and obviously that's such a South Dakota thing. Of every other state has one. Why don't we? And then someone starts one. We're always kind of the last ones to the game, but we're always have the passionate people behind it that make it happen. So that's
why we do what we do.
That's why we're here too. So props to both of you guys and your entire team for doing what you guys do. I'm gonna throw it off to both of you guys once again, because I heard right before we started recording, you guys know everything about Ghostbusters, is what you were saying.
Well, we know quite a bit.
I want to talk history of this movie, because maybe even more fascinating than this movie. I mean, everybody on this panel right now we're going to say the same thing. This is one of the great horror comedies. This is one of the great movies of all time.
Yep.
But what's the history behind this movie, especially with Mr. Dan Aykroyd and his vision of the Ghostbusters? He might be a little crazy now. You should hear the stories from back then.
Always a little crazy.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I know just from my, nerd lore, I guess you'd say, and just facts of Dan Aykroyd, what's really cool with him is that it was his father and his grandfather were like really into ghosts, and
like they were spiritualists, I guess you probably call them. I think his grandfather had written a book about the paranormal, and Dan Aykroyd had just kind of grown up around all these people that were interested in the paranormal. So I think it was really normal and commonplace for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most fascinating things, especially like some of those early drafts where obviously back in 1984 and previously when this movie was in production, they didn't have the money or technology to do what Dan Aykroyd wanted them to do.
Yeah, it was supposed to be some like crazy script, and like in 1984 money it was going to cost like $300 million to make it, and so like they brought in Harold Ramis to trim it down and make it into what the movie actually ultimately ended up. Just it's a going into business story, and originally no, it wasn't that. It was supposed to take place in outer space and different dimensions, and the equipment was totally different. So yeah, it turned into a completely different movie.
So you're saying is Harold Ramis brought him down to earth a little bit?
Oh, quite a bit. I think there's quite a bit of Harold Ramis writing in it. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. At that point, it's more Dan Aykroyd's story. Harold Ramis. I'm just gonna finish this here for you.
Yeah. Yep. I know. I had heard that they went. Dan Aykroyd had like a bunker, and they would write in the bunker, and they go during the weekends, and they'd write, and like they'd bring like their whole family, and it was just like kind of like a fun little like camp out for everybody, and they would just write these scripts, and yeah, it was just it was probably really cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say
there like one. Sorry to interrupt, but I think just to add on to Brandon's thing, I think like when they were doing that whole thing, when they were putting the story together, they borrowed it. I mean, I think like a lot of concept stuff from like this Bob Hope.
Yes. Yep.
What Breakers or something like that is what I think it was originally.
Yeah, there's a lot of Bob Hope movies, like kind of like Abbott and Costello. Yeah, there was just a lot of this old Hollywood stuff that they brought into it. Yep.
Like the gigantic, the marshmallow that was, a big, gigantic monster that walks through New York. He was, that it's like all that stuff is taken from.
Even the Marshmallow Man was supposed to be way bigger than it actually was, and he was supposed to like come out of the East River.
And they were probably like, we can't do that.
Yeah, today it'd be easy, but back in '84, not so much.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of like the charm of this one is like part of the reason that I don't think the second one is quite as strong is because it goes so far into the special effects and everything like that it kind of loses what made the first one so special in a way.
Oh, definitely. Well, I
watched them both. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I've always thought that it was kind of weird that even both movies, they really don't bust that many ghosts in them.
No.
I mean, especially this movie here that we're talking about is it's a montage of them.
Yeah,
busting ghosts.
Yep.
And it's just news clippings and them on TV.
But that is also that is also like a staple of the 80s.
Oh, very much, yeah.
Anything that you want to quote unquote make as an action movie, there's going to be the 14 hours of footage they're going to cram into 3 minutes, so you can see exactly what really happened. So this is just a perfect example of just another one of those. Everything needs a montage in the 80s.
Well, and
I mean, yeah, so I was going to say, too, because you guys are talking about the 80s and other actors that were thrown into that mix. Belushi, I mean, his name was kicked around. I think Eddie Murphy originally was one of the actors.
Yeah, I actually just read that Michael Keaton was cast as Peter Venkman, and Bill Murray said that he was interested in the role, and so then they're like, okay, we got to go with Bill Murray. So they actually axed Michael Keaton as Venkman.
Yeah, well, Keaton's probably watching this movie nowadays and going, yeah, that was a better fit.
Probably.
Also, in a completely different movie.
You look at 1984. Michael Keaton isn't Michael Keaton like that he is now. He's
Mr. Mom.
He was, and then eventually becomes Batman, which is like, I mean, really, I mean that was a cast, not a typical type casting role to throw him in there. And later on, I mean, many years later, but
what's crazy is Bill Murray's name was kicked around for Batman in '89.
Yeah, I couldn't. That just would.
They
not
both
work.
ended up in the right movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they sparked, and I think it worked out for the best.
Yeah.
Everything happens for a reason.
Mhm.
That's what I have
That's
to say
right.
to that.
I now want to see Bill Murray's Batman in the Flash movie coming out here.
I would
Yeah,
100%
In
watch
some
either of
universe,
those
Bill
roles
Murray is
reversed, but I
Batman.
think we got
Yeah,
the
that's
best
true.
version.
You know, because you think about that now, and it probably just it would have been, you know, like strange. It would have been like he would have been like really, really old Batman.
Oh,
I think one of the biggest charms of this movie, I'm not even going to go over a plot. Everybody knows the plot of Ghostbusters. Everybody's seen this movie a million times.
If they haven't, they're wrong.
yeah,
Right.
right.
If they haven't, I'm sorry. We are going to spoil the Ghostbusters for you. The biggest thing about this movie is this entire crew that we bring together. Because obviously we talked about all the people that might have been in this movie, from Eddie Murphy to Michael Keaton, even having someone come along with Harold Ramis to help beef up or at least bring down the script from Dan Aykroyd. Then you have Ivan Reitman in the director's chair, and then you throw this entire cast of Bill Murray, Ernie Hudson, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Rick Moranis, Sigourney Weaver. Like, you had this huge ensemble cast. I think the magic of this movie lies in how many pieces of this puzzle just fell together so perfectly.
Mhm.
And I think that's why someone like Ivan Reitman is kind of an underrated director, where you have so many of these pieces where, especially with Bill Murray on, I think, any movie, you're like, is he going to show up to set today? Because he's a wild card.
Yep.
My understanding is they ran into that even with this movie. Like, they had already started production to the point where they weren't sure if Bill Murray was even going to make his calling that day, kind of thing. Like, he's been like that since then. So I mean, that's
I was about to say
new.
the movies that made us episode on this, they were saying, it was like day one of shooting and they had no idea if Bill was actually going to show up.
Yeah,
and then of course he showed up and he just like nailed it.
So Bill Murray did not get paid anything for doing Ghostbusters.
Well, they probably weren't sure if he was going to show up, so they were going to write the check first.
Well, he made a deal with the studio because there was a movie he wanted to make. I'm thinking it's called like Occam's Razor.
Or Razor's Edge, wasn't it?
Razor's Edge. Yep, that's what it is. Razor's Edge. Yeah, and that came out like in the fall of '84, and it was just a complete flop. I've never seen it. I should probably look it up just to see it. And so, yeah, he wanted to get his, pet project made, and so he didn't take any money for it. And ultimately, I think it worked out for him okay, but
yeah.
He's probably getting some sort of residual on the back end.
I would think so. Well, actually, so up until the 2016 movie, each one of them, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Harold Ramis, before he died, they all had to sign off on any remakes or anything like that. And so I know that there was, I believe there was a time limit on that. And for some reason, I think like before the 2016, it maybe had expired, because I don't think Bill Murray had to sign off on it. I could be wrong.
That would have been an interesting attempt to try to get that signature.
Well, and Bill Murray is so notorious. I know, like, to get action figure sculpts made of his head, they have to get his approval. And, like, I know there's been times where they've had to, like, track him down on the golf course to get him to approve the sculpt.
Yeah, that sounds like Bill Murray.
Yeah.
See, that's what's great about Funko Pops. You don't have to worry about it. They're just kind of semi, generic faces and whatnot. It's good. You're good.
Yeah.
Bill Murray, always golfing with Newman and Michael Jordan and Larry Bird.
Now he's just golfing with the Chive guys because he's making his money off of the Chive with the William H. Murray golf line.
He was showing up to someone's random wedding just to hang out there. They couldn't find Bill Murray. That's usually how it goes. And I think that's, again, maybe the oldest story of that type of Bill Murray. Like, he's such a wild card. Maybe he's not even going to show up for this movie. Obviously he does, and that's how we get to the movie we're talking about today. I want to talk about.
If you talk about perfect casting, like, I know everybody's like, "Oh, Peter Venkman's the best Ghostbuster," but like, what does he actually do in this movie? he is always blowing off the other three to just try and get some. Like that's all he does the entire movie. He's not a part. He's not an integral part of the team until the very end when he's essentially like, I mean, I guess my girlfriend's apartment is like a dimension to a hellhole. Like that's the only reason that he even does any of the busting.
I don't think Peter Venkman took any of it seriously until the end.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't think so. I genuinely think he just thought he was scamming people.
They go to start walking up the stairs as the lightning cracks, and he's like, "Nope, y'all can go first.
Go ahead.
Y'all can go first."
One of my favorite lines watching it this time came from that. It was one I missed watching it, however many times before. Is when
was it the where do these stairs go?
Where do these stairs go? Yeah,
they go
up. And I think
they go up.
There was a lot of, and I think a lot of that stuff was just improv that he kind of threw in at times because he was tired because of those proton packs and.
Yep.
Brandon will.
Yeah, so they said that they would weigh down Bill Murray's proton pack to way more than everybody else's did because they thought that they got a better reaction and he was funnier if he was like a little bit kind of mad.
So they're just intentionally poking the bear, and
and I'm completely okay with that.
See, that's why. What About Bob is such a successful film because they did that same thing by hiring Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, and
anybody who has to act alongside Richard Dreyfuss is like. He's
I even think when you get to the end, the end of this film, and after they blow up the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, you see Venkman with barely any of the puff on him, and it kind of plays into the way his character is in the movie. But I also look at it as like from a production side of things, and Bill Murray going, "Oh hell no!"
So
y'all can do that. I'm not gonna.
So Bill Murray,
speaking as someone who just dug 2 of these out of marshmallow goop,
isn't that stuff the worst?
Yeah, I was over my bathroom sink for like 20 minutes trying to get it off like everything.
So they say if you put it in the freezer,
stuff covering me either.
Yeah, you put it in the freezer and let it get hard, and then it comes right off.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that people just listening to the audio have no idea what we're talking about.
Are these guys talking about boogers or what are they talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of
boogers, here's a really fun fact: is like that visual effects guy that was on Ghostbusters, Richard Edlund.
Yeah, Edlund. Yep.
Edlund also collaborated with Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars and all that, but they were running out of time when they were filming, and especially like the scenes with Slimer when he's flying around the chandelier. And I think he's actually one thing that they did is they actually took a peanut and painted it green. And then that peanut, they just made it blurry. And that became part of their little guy that was spinning around this chandelier was this peanut that was painted green. So, I mean,
that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, but people, when you look at it now, and I suppose if you really, and I've always tried to really look close and see if I could see anything that had a peanut resemblance to it.
maybe that's why the 4K is not quite 100% pristine.
Yeah,
they're like
we can't expose the peanut.
We can't get it looking at that good. Then they'll figure us out. I'm watching the 4K. I'm like, it definitely looks pretty because like even when I'm watching it in the 4K and when we're seeing Gozer and all that and the beautiful archway and whatnot, I'm like, this is the most like clear I've ever seen. I'm like, I don't know if I even realized how like transparent that entire like how well they did it all. I'm like, my VHS tape lied to me all those years ago.
Having watched this movie on VHS tapes, yes, it did, Brian.
Well, did you watch? Did you rewatch this now on VHS?
Yeah, that's the only way I actually own Ghostbusters 1 and 2. I only own it on VHS.
I have my 2-pack gift set on DVD that I got as a kid. I also have the VHS right up there next to my new Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I love Mr. Stay Puft. Wait, which way? There we go.
Awesome.
He's been sitting this Mr. Stay Puft behind me. He's been sitting all year at our Spirit Halloween, and I keep walking in, and I kept seeing him, and I went in on Saturday night, and he was just hanging on one shelf, just by himself, and it like almost made me tear up. I've grown emotionally attached to this thing over all the times I've gone to Spirit Halloween this season, and so I had to pick him up. I was like, I just gotta buy him. He's mine now. I love him.
Right.
Mr. Stay Puft is my favorite. He's like, when I first watched this movie, guys, as like a 6-year-old, it terrified me. And Mr. Stay Puft was the only ghost in this entire movie that didn't terrify me. So I like attached myself to Mr. Stay Puft. It's really funny, Scott, that you were talking about how you're like joking about how you think the divorce was because of Ghostbusters or whatever. Because the night my dad showed me Ghostbusters, I genuinely thought my parents were going to get a divorce. My mom was pissed. Like, yeah. I was terrified and would not go to bed for anything. And oh God, it was bad. It was a weird night in my house. The first night I watched Ghostbusters.
And I'm over here as a kid watching it. When we bought the VHS first and foremost, because I would have been 84, so VHS probably about 85. So I'm 7 years old when this movie comes out on a home video. No, we're watching it as a family. I watch it, not a single problem, with the exception of there's only one ghost that scared the living shit out of me as a child, and that was that damn is the librarian at the very beginning. But I watched this.
It got me right away, and I couldn't let go of it for the rest of the movie. I literally watched the rest of the movie between my fingers.
All I remember is after watching it for the very first time, anytime, because I watched that VHS until my VHS broke. Be like watching. Okay, here comes the thing. And just because I know when they start running out the library, I know I'm okay. Hands up, we're good. All right.
That scene, and then the hands coming out of the chair and grabbing Sigourney Weaver, I'm like, nope. Yeah. Nope. Like, even today,
and if you look really close on that scene, you can, so Sigourney Weaver, in my, I was a teenager, so I think she accelerated puberty for me a little bit. Just because she was always an alien. She looked good. I mean, she always looked good, but in there, she was, then once she became possessed. That was cool. I mean, and it was a subtle cool, and it was still done somewhat tasteful. There's some innuendos that they throw in, but still, I felt okay letting my son watch a lot of that, and he was pretty young at the time. But
a lot of that stuff just goes right over your head too.
Mm-hmm. It does.
There was so much stuff in that movie that just went over my head, and then years later, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, look at they snuck in there. Especially.
It was only about like 2 years ago that I finally was like, wait. Keymaster and Gatekeeper. Oh my God. I was like 26 years old, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Wow, it took you that long? Wow. I'm just saying, you were a sheltered child.
I was slow on the uptake there.
But though some parents or some people might say about what these kind of movies insinuated at the time, and the jokes, whether or not a kid should understand them or everything. These are the same jokes that are even in like the Toy Story movies and Pixar movies.
Oh yeah.
The adult jokes have been in kids movies for as long as they can be. So it's like, it's gonna happen. It did happen. It's gonna happen. Going forward. So I look at that. I'm
You're
like,
totally right.
as an adult, I'm like, I'm so glad I did not understand that as a child, because that probably would have traumatized me. But now as an adult, that shit's funny.
Everybody always brings up the Dan Aykroyd ghost blowjob as if we didn't see Buzz Lightyear like clearly getting it from Lenny.
I was going to say, that's one of the biggest things about this movie that I think, again, works so well with it, is that anyone, any age can watch Ghostbusters and you find enjoyment. It's one of those movies that you watch as a kid. All those things that are for adults are going to fly right over your head just because they're not in your face. And that's my favorite thing about this movie. Nothing's in your face about it. It's all subtle. It's very subtle, especially the comedy. The comedy is just, again, it's just these subtle lines. They don't pause for the jokes either. It's just these subtle one-liners that they throw in throughout the movie. And a lot
I do think we lose a little bit of the subtlety in the said joke that Sam just referenced. Because there's no subtlety there whatsoever.
And what's that? The Dan Aykroyd blowjob ghost?
The fellatio.
Yes.
I think it's subtle, and as a kid, you're not going to know what that is.
I was about to say, actually, as a kid, I had no idea what that was.
And it cuts away pretty quickly.
Once again, it was like I was like 26 years old, and I'm like, oh, hey, wait a minute.
It cuts away to them sleeping and falling on a bed. It's like, oh, it's a dream, and he's dreaming about a ghost. I don't know what that means, but he's just having a dream. But I think Bill Murray's like one-liners in this movie obviously are the ones everybody quotes all the time. Even so much on this podcast, right there, back off, I'm a scientist. His character is, again, maybe the most fascinating to look at because he's a scientist, sure, but even in the beginning of this movie, it's like kind of creepy, dude. You're picking up a student. Is that what you're doing? Yeah, that's definitely what you're doing.
My favorite part is the guy who plays Richie in Christine. Like, I don't know, a bunch of wavy lines, and it's like he's right, and Murray just goes, "I'm sorry, this is just not your day," and it's just like one of those things where it's just so freaking funny. Like,
and the fact that the kid's
the
gum
idea
falls
that
out of
this
his
man
mouth
will
is
actually,
so funny.
yeah. Like the idea that this man who is making money doing science, like science totally comes second for him.
I think it plays into. I don't think Bateman. I don't think Bateman believed any of it. I think it was just a paycheck for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
And they kind of make reference to that because when they leave the university, it's the fact that this is the first time he'll have ever been in the private sector.
Yeah.
So pretty much it's the fact that he graduated college after he got his PhDs and everything like that. He was the career student that became part of the university's teaching staff because he didn't want to leave the school, and he found a way to be able to basically get the grants and the paycheck without actually having to do the work.
Yep.
Well, and that's what I love about Aykroyd's line when they get thrown out, where he's just like, "You've never worked in the private sector. I personally like this. It was nice. They didn't expect anything. In the private sector, they expect results."
I think that that Venkman's character, really didn't. Until the end, I don't think he really was into much of it. And then I think once he realized he could make money doing it, I think then he got way more into it then, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially when he started coming up with the amounts for the hotel.
Yeah, like
$4,000 for this. Granted, you see Harold.
Well, I've always had to wonder, like, how much money did they really make? I mean, they were super busy, and so like I assume they paid off the firehouse. They paid for all this stuff. So I mean, they must have made a ton of money.
Yeah, they had to.
Especially after they sued the city for the EPA guy, to have Peck shutting everything down. Everything blows up their building and be like, "We're gonna sue you for a new building."
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
I would say still after all these years, that is like my quote of like all quotes in this movie that I hands down always love to anticipate, and just the execution is just perfect. Like it's the kind, like I almost want to feel that it would have been something that Bill Murray would have ad-libbed, and Reitman's just like, you know what, we have to keep this in there, and then just Peck's just beautiful audible response, and just the scene just plays out perfectly. Like I think that like you may mention here, Sam, is that like all the right pieces and all the right people were in this movie to the point where you could have somebody like Bill Murray ad lib and have the right cast on basically on deck to be able to know how to, whatever pitch Bill Murray threw at them, knew how to basically hit it back.
Well, and all those guys had great acting chops. I mean, they were either on Saturday Night Live or Second City. You know, they had all worked together before. Obviously, I think they were all good friends, and so like it shows on the screen. It's very believable.
And there's a lot of like these behind the scenes clips, and Brandon will share a lot of these really cool clips on our headquarters, which is just the stuff that we see. That's not on the Facebook page. And Rick Moranis, some of his stuff that he would say between takes, especially when he was doing the filming scenes with Sigourney Weaver. I mean, they're funny, and if you guys haven't seen those, I would definitely, if you go on YouTube, you can pretty much look up most of those deleted scenes now, or some of the scenes that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor that we hadn't even seen until they did the 35th anniversary, and then they had Ghostbusters Fest, and Ivan was there and Jason was there. Obviously, they were talking about the movie coming out. But yeah, they had released a bunch of these behind the scenes stuff that nobody had ever seen before, and just all the weird outtakes, and like when they come through the doors at the hotel, all the different things that they said. It was just
I've seen reels of like all the different things they've said in that, and that's so great. I think they went with the best one though.
Oh,
we
definitely.
We saw it, kicked its ass. Like that's just a perfect line.
That's the one where no matter how many times you watch it, you say the line with him with as much gusto as he provides as well.
Yeah, it's
we gave a lot
Space
to
Jam.
Yeah, we gave a lot to Bill.
You just have to yell with him.
So Bill Murray, though, there was, and I don't know, Brandon, if you can add to this. There was Bill Murray. We've been talking a lot about him, but and all the other cast are so talented and great. But Bill Murray, there was a scene that they originally had spoke of, and I don't remember if that was a clip that was ever included, but where Carl from Caddyshack, his character was supposed to make like some kind of cameo in there, but he was just too similar to Bill Murray's Venkman that they decided it just didn't work right. But
yeah, it was a scene when Lewis is being chased by the tear dog, and he gets chased across the street, and there's two bums, and it's Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray, and yeah, they totally cut it out, but yeah, it would have been kind of cool to keep it in.
That's awesome.
I don't know how I'd feel about that. Granted, when I think of the two bums, I immediately think of the two bums from Coming to America, the guys from Trading Places. But if it would have been something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I think we've talked about Mr. Murray quite a bit. I want to touch on some of this other cast because Rick Moranis is quite the scene stealer in this movie. He, again, watching this again now, you're like, man, I just miss Rick Moranis because he has such a light when he comes onto any screen. He's in any movie that he's in. It's like, I'm just glad to see you. You have this presence on the screen where you're like, no matter what type of character, what character you play, you're like, I'm just glad to see you. And in this one, he again has some of the best. I would think most of his stuff seems scripted, but maybe Rick Moranis is just that type of actor where it's like,
I think he's just that good.
He can just ad-lib a lot of this.
I don't think anybody wrote down the scene where he's like, I'm going to bring this up at the next building meeting.
So the scene that they do when he's throwing the party in his apartment, that is all shot in a single shot, and it's completely ad-libbed by him. Yeah, the whole thing. It's Ted and Annette, and they have a dry cleaning business and receivership. That's all him, all made up.
I love that. That's incredible.
And that's just and like you said though, that comes from his improv and the Second City and all that stuff. Like he's a perfect, like he's my expectations, my bar is set really, really low, but and being the fact that Disney was able to convince Moranis to come out of retirement for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids for Disney Plus, that I'm hoping that there's some sort of way that Sony was able to convince him to do something for this new Ghostbusters that they're purposely keeping 100% under wraps, just to be able to kind of let him loose and go, we brought him back too. So because he, as much as we want to, talk about Murray and Aykroyd and Hudson and Moranis and everything like that, like, I mean, and even with Sigourney Weaver, like, without having Rick Moranis in this movie, I don't think this movie would have had as much of a punch as it would have been, because he's just that weird, quirky, just that perfect extra piece that just made everything perfect.
Well, and I've read that there was really nothing on the page for the character. Originally, it was supposed to be John Candy, and John Candy wanted to do some weird thing with like Doberman dogs, and they're like, we got too many dog things going on in this movie. We're gonna pass. And so then they called up Rick Moranis, and yeah, the clothes, everything about the character is pretty much created by Rick Moranis.
That's awesome. He does. He almost runs away with this whole movie. And I mean, the chase scene itself is hilarious. And then after he gets possessed and he's running around New York, the scene where he's talking to the horse is the funniest thing. Like, it cracks me up every time. And
the look on his face with the possessed eyes.
Yeah. And my road rage, when I get road rage, a lot of times I will literally quote the carriage driver, where I'm just like, what an asshole. That's like my go-to behind the wheel, because I just love that scene so much.
And I feel like Rick Moranis is like, as they're going through that and whatnot, and he probably sees the carriage driver and everything like that, and it's probably like, I'm gonna go talk to that horse, and Reitman's probably like, you know what, just go for it. Just go for it.
Yeah. They talk about how they were really kind of doing this like guerrilla style filmmaking, where they were just, hey, we've got a green light, let's get this shot, and all this kind of stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if they literally just made up Rick Moranis and threw him into a New York City street and was like, hey, just do your thing, man.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of that. I know there's like a scene in the montage where they're running towards the camera, and there's actually a security guard behind them telling them that they can't film there. Yeah, there was a lot of that. A lot of the scenes around the city with Ecto, they didn't have any permits, and that's really Dan Aykroyd driving Ecto. Like, they would tell Dan Aykroyd, this is the mark you need to hit, and he'd come around the block and hit the mark every time.
There you go.
And anybody that's driven a car that's that big, to be able to do that, I mean, that's a huge car loaded down with all that equipment. I mean, he's a very good driver.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, this movie, it came together in such a way. There's just this like anarchic DIY type of vibe to this movie that the sequel did not manage to recapture, that the 2016 one did not manage to recapture. And like, as much as I'm excited for Ghostbusters Afterlife, it looks like a very sleek, big budget movie.
It does.
And that's fine. I'm very excited for it because it looks like it's also going to hit all of my nostalgia buttons. But that's one thing that I just don't think they've ever managed to quite recapture, is just the energetic, like, this is kind of a punk rock movie. Like,
I don't think you could make a movie like that today. I don't think that you could even attempt to make a movie like that today. It's just, it was magic in a bottle. All these things fell into place between the casting, the music. The music in this movie does not get talked about enough. The music is amazing. It is actually, I consider it a character in the movie itself. They have these weird noises in the background, and like, it's just perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that you talk about, characters in the movie, you always think of the actors again, but like the music, that's a character. The car is it's a character. The firehouse is a character. Like, Sigourney Weaver's apartment is a character in this movie.
Mr. Stay Puft the Sailor is a character.
He
definitely the logo in itself
left him alone.
Yeah, the logo is a character.
Yep. And I think that's one of the things that, again, that's that lightning in a bottle magic to this movie, is that you have so many of these elements. Any movie would be like, I wish I could just have one of those. This movie has every one of those elements in this movie, and it all works and blends so well. And I think, again, that's where it's hard to, how do you capitalize on that with a sequel or a remake or another sequel after that, or the animated series as well. And I think that's one thing where it's like, I don't know, don't try to capture that magic. Try to capture your own magic. And I think that's where, like, something like, I think the animated series does very well of, we're just going to do our own thing and capture our own magic in the
right.
In the
and that's a lot of with the animated. The first episodes that were in syndication, they had a lot of control over the stories, and so it's very dark, it's very scary, and that's what makes it so good.
Mm-hmm.
The pilot of the animated The Real Ghostbusters was, I mean, that's like really good. I mean,
have any of you ever seen the pilot that they did for The Real Ghostbusters, where they're all in their tan jumpsuits? It's somebody found the tape of it and actually restored it. It's on YouTube, but it's interesting because the characters, like Venkman's character, actually looks like Venkman, and so
nice.
they changed him to make him not look so much like Venkman for the animated series.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's a must watch if you're a Ghostbusters fan, is that for sure.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
I'll have to check it out because, like, I love these movies. I don't know. Specifically the first one. I think the sequel and the remake have their issues, but this movie to me is just, it's perfect.
Well, the sequel had its moments, but I think a lot of the problems with the sequel was they made a lot of money off the first one, and then the studio said, okay, you need to check these boxes off. And we've got an animated series that's very popular with kids, and we need to get those kids in the theater. And so we need to do these things. We need to get rid of the smoking. We need to get rid of the talking. We need to change slime to the pink color because that's the one that we sell the most of. And then, like, the music. The music in the second one, it's okay, but I think the movie would have been better if they would have used the music from the first movie.
Yeah. The best musical moments in number 2 are the ones that use kind of like similar cues from the first one.
And what I think is really cool is Ghostbusters Afterlife. The clips that I've seen are using music from the first movie.
Good.
Oh, I got chills when I first watched that trailer when they used Venkman's "Call It Fate, Call It Karma."
Oh yeah,
that got me. Like, I was seriously like, and then they show like Spengler's suit, and I bawled, man. I legitimately like cried at that trailer. I'm just so excited. Like, Spengler is my favorite Ghostbuster. I love him. I love Harold Ramis, and so like this movie, this new movie it seems to be honoring that character and his legacy, and I'm just like, I'm very much excited for that because I don't know. I was like,
and I guess Jason Reitman was, I mean, he was the guy that they wanted to do this, and being his dad and Hollywood and a lot of the fans felt that.
Well, I mean, he's the original,
right.
The
he was
number one fan. Yeah, exactly.
And
I mean,
the only
he's
thing
just
I
such
ever
a good
really
director in his own right.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for Smoking. It's such a good movie in its own. Juno are both really good movies.
Juno,
I mean, he's got directing chops.
I was only familiar with Jennifer's Body that he ever did, which was
God, I love that movie. I love that movie.
Well, and this is one of those ones where it's like, if you're gonna pass the baton, if Reitman isn't gonna make them, or if Ivan isn't gonna make the movie, who's the best person to do it? And it's like, hey, you know what? My kid's a director. Like you said, he was on set for the original and whatnot. Of course, we want, they said, oh, Jason's gonna do this movie, and I'm over here going, this for me, this wasn't like a cash grab on the name or anything like that. That is me going, that is the right person to take the baton from his father, that if we are going to get this movie, that's the person who needs to make this movie. Nobody else should be allowed to make this movie unless it would have been Ivan himself.
Yeah.
Could we say he was the right man for the job? Huh?
They've got patches that say that. The right man for the
I'm
job.
not getting a left for that one.
And he
I
and he was
refuse.
back there going probably occasionally. I would think he definitely, unless they both got really huge egos, but it doesn't look like it. Because I'm, hey Dad, what do you think of this, or what do you think of this?
I've seen that Ivan was on set a lot.
Yeah,
and like that. I think they work together on it. I mean, it's when you've got when your dad is Ivan Reitman. I mean, I'm sure
you don't say, "I'm sorry, Dad, you can't come to set."
Yeah.
I just hope it's Catherine Reitman is the sister, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully she gets a cameo in this movie. I like Catherine Reitman.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Jason was in Ghostbusters too, so.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the kids at the party, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the one that told the Ghostbusters off.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That makes it. Again, I'm going to jump very briefly, touch on the 2016 movie. I find that movie, just not even the movie itself, but why the characters come back, the actors coming back, I find so fascinating. I'm like, you guys waited all these years, and always the story was Bill Murray doesn't want to do it. We can't do it without Bill Murray. And then all of a sudden
he has the biggest cameo in the whole thing.
I was going to say, it's not even a cameo. It's a character in the movie. And I'm like, how did you guys get him to do this? Why are we not just doing a sequel if you can get him to do this? And obviously Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson would be there in a heartbeat to do another Ghostbusters. Why would you not just do the sequel? I'm glad we're finally getting there now. And it seems like maybe it took that movie happening to get to where we are.
Oh, definitely.
Now.
If 2016 wouldn't have happened, we wouldn't have Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I don't necessarily think that's 100% all of it, though, because one of the things that I've seen come about is that there was a lot of animosity between Harold Ramis and Bill Murray throughout the years, and Ghostbusters being part of it because of Bill Murray, all this stuff and whatnot. Is my understanding is before Harold Ramis's passing, they cleaned the slate. Yep. So, that's 2014. So by 2016, when the Feige one is coming about, Bill Murray's tune is changed. So I think
I just want to correct your name, Feig. Otherwise,
Feig.
People are like, Kevin Feige made a Ghostbusters movie?
Yes, Paul Feig. Yeah, I would have been Paul Feig.
You heard it here first, guys. Backlot 605 with the hot scoop. Ghostbusters is part of the MCU. Spread it around.
Yes, but I think that has a lot to do with, especially why he has such a big part and why he had anything to do with the 2016 version is because, he's in a different line. And I think that's a big reason also to why we're finally getting Afterlife now after all these years. Yep. All those pieces are finally coming back to play in the proper way. We finally have a Bill Murray with an acceptable script that he's willing to be in a movie for. And I think that because he's settled everything with Harold Ramis, he kind of wants to come. I'm thinking is that, he wants to come back and say, okay, I'm going to do this for Harold. I'm going to do this because this is what I should have done 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really feel like Stranger Things kind of really.
Yeah, that too.
Helped bring that culture into light a little bit as well with that, spinning it into that 80s style. It has a lot of the qualities that the original movie had. And then, of course, the kids, when they showed up in the second season, wearing
as
that
Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Still makes me wonder, like as an adult, does Finn Wolfhard's character from Stranger Things, as an adult, watch the new Ghostbusters and be like, man, that kid looks like me when I was a teenager. That's weird. Sam, what were you going to say?
No, I forgot now. No, I do. I'm excited for this new one, but I think the thing is, like, a lot of people don't like the 2016 one. I personally, I think it's fine. I think it's a little long. I don't think it's a little too slick to be, like, a great Ghostbusters film. A lot of the problems I have with it are the same problems that I have with Ghostbusters 2. I'd put them on about the same level. They're both enjoyable. They're both fine. But the thing that the 2016 one did was it brought it back in a big way. Like Ghostbusters became mainstream again. And I think because that movie was so divisive, it actually pushed Ghostbusters further into the conversation. If it would have been a movie that, you know, like it could have been one of those movies that just comes and goes in theaters. It's like, you know, like Zoolander 2. No one cares about Zoolander 2. No one was talking
That's like
about
my
Zoolander
favorite
2.
movie.
Like
It is.
well, I'm
He
sorry,
has like
but nobody
this
cares.
collection of Zoolander 2 stuff that
Yeah.
You've got the Bieber selfie from the opening.
Got an autograph.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You know, the 2016 one for what it was worth, it brought it back into the public eye, and it gave me an opportunity as someone who had missed the boat on this to actually finally have a high C ecto cooler.
I was
And,
just
oh
going
my
to say,
God.
if anything, it brought back high C ecto cooler, which I also
Yep.
had never had before. That
Oh
point.
man, you
I
guys
guess
we were-
missed out. Never have an ecto cooler before
so
this.
much money on ecto cooler on the summer of 2016. Like
What
so
color?
much
What
money.
was it? Was it the orange stuff?
No, it's green.
No, it's
Green.
green.
Well, no, I was gonna say it's because I saw some of the orange stuff though too, but I was gonna say the true ecto cooler was gonna be the neon lime green stuff.
Yep, and that's what it was. It
And-
was so great.
I
But
have
see-
4 cases in my freezer.
Do you really?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I read that you can freeze it pretty much indefinitely, and so every once in a while I'll crack open one and enjoy an ecto cooler.
Yeah, it's like
Nice.
so we're gonna get into Super Bowl or the football from nerd stuff to football. He's like the Dolphins when they crack open champagne when nobody beats their record that they had back in the he does that with the ecto cooler. He'll get it out and like, okay, here we go. Get some my son and I we loaded up a bunch of it, but I never froze it and drank it.
I
was
just
gonna
remember.
say, I mean-
I just remember as a kid, the Kool-Aid brand actually came out with the ecto cooler, mix and whatnot, and I drank the hell out of that when I was a kid because what's better than rot your teeth with 4 cups of sugar.
Well, and the thing is, going back to the original movie, there was so many product tie-ins as well. I mean, the product tie-ins, Coca-Cola, Ecto Cooler, Twinkies, even not to mention the theme song. I mean, the theme song has been such a staple for Halloween for over 35 years now.
Yep. Well, and you think too, like there are so many complaints these days about like, oh, movies are too corporate and blah blah blah, and it's all product placement. And I'm like, this is the generation, like the generation that's always complaining about that is the generation that grew up on Star Wars, on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, a movie that was literally only made to sell chocolate bars. That's it. That's the only reason that movie was made. Anybody who's part of it will tell you that. Ghostbusters. I mean, all of these movies were merchandising hot plates, and so people who are like, oh, it's so corporate now. I'm like, well, it's always been. Maybe you just didn't recognize it at the time, but like,
I think
it's always been that way.
This movie does a good job
business.
of integrating the product placements into the movie. It's like just the guys are just hanging out, eating Cheez-Its and drinking Coca-Cola. It's not like Mark Wahlberg.
Marlboros.
It's not like Mark Wahlberg in Transformers just holding a Bud Light like in frame. Like, look, I drank Bud Light, and then
Ghostbusters are smoking Marlboros and drinking Miller Lite in the Ecto.
Yeah. And
so when I gotta inject this in.
Mark
I was going to inject
isn't the best actor, like he might have just done that because he thought it was a natural movement.
So the smoking thing I was going to inject in because one of the props that we use as South Dakota Ghostbusters is we went through, and this is how it's such a generational thing. It's so different. Is we're doing the St. Patrick's Day parade. Which year was that one we did? It was really huge.
Probably 2017.
It was great. We had the Ecto going. We had the lights going. The crowd and the little kids are just going nuts. And all of a sudden, I got this little kid. I have this fake cigarette hanging out of my mouth, and this little kid's like, "He's smoking."
Oh gosh.
And then all of a sudden, I just realized, this isn't the 80s anymore.
Right.
Hey, you're just being screen accurate. There's nothing wrong with that.
All right, guys. I'm going to go into a couple questions I have for all of us here. I guess let's touch on the movie one more time, because I mean, let's go round corner here, or round circle here. Everybody give their final thoughts, I guess, on Ghostbusters, and give your 5-star rating, because we're all going to give it 5 stars.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll start, and I'll throw it off to on our screen here, Brian, Sam, Brandon, and then Scott. Yeah, I think this is a perfect horror comedy. This is one of the great movies of the 80s. This is one of the great ensemble movies. This is a 5-star classic in every sense of the term. It's kind of, I think, for some people become like, oh well, the hype is too high on this movie. It becomes Star Wars at that point. But I'm like, believe the hype. Star Wars is that good. Ghostbusters is that good. If it's that good, it's that good. Like, you can't argue a great movie like this. So Ghostbusters 5-star classic. Ghostbusters 2 is fine.
For me, this is a childhood staple. This is a movie that I've owned in every iteration of its format. Well, okay, maybe not Laserdisc. But I mean, from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to my digital to, it's one of those ones I've had in my collection, both Ghostbusters 1 and 2, because I will love them both equally, even though I do know that Ghostbusters 2 is the inferior of the two. But that's a story for a whole different day.
It's a good movie yet. I mean,
yeah, it's still a good movie.
I was 11 years old calling mom at 2 o'clock in the morning because the decapitated heads in the subway thing scared the living shit out of me.
That scene is gruesome. I love it. I love it.
So absolutely, this is, for me, it's always and always will be a 5-star movie, because like we've said over and over again, it is lightning in a bottle. There's nothing that can take away from this, even as dated as some of the special effects may be. It's what makes this movie so enjoyable, because it's, at that point, it comes a little campy and still just as fun.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm rating this 5 stars. I love this movie. It's absolutely one of my favorites of all time. Mr. Stay Puft is just like my guy, he's my hombre. And I don't know, everything about this movie is perfect. I don't know what you add to the conversation on this movie that hasn't been said before, because it's all just like, it's so well documented that this movie is just a banger. And yeah, I love Ghostbusters. I have watched it probably in the triple digits, and I will probably watch it well into the quadruple digits by the time I die, because I watch this movie on like a fairly regular basis, to be honest with you. Like, it's maybe,
we know it's not
every
Chopping
couple
Mall.
months. It's not Chopping Mall, but yeah, I watch Ghostbusters so much, like a ridiculous amount. So yeah.
Yeah,
5 stars.
I mean,
I love it.
Yeah, Ghostbusters is definitely like 5 stars. I mean, obviously, I based my life around it, so I think I probably kind of like it. But yeah, I mean, it is. It's a perfect movie. It was perfect timing. It was a perfect time in 1984 when it came out. It just, everything about it was just right. And yeah, you couldn't make this movie again today. And I mean, obviously they've tried with the 2016, but yeah, Ghostbusters just checks all the boxes, and I mean, it's become such a part of pop culture. There's very few people that don't know who we are when we're out as Ghostbusters. I mean, when I'm driving the car around, people are honking at me, and yeah, it's crazy. And the thing that always gets me is the little kids that know what Ghostbusters are. Like, I'm like, how do you know what this movie is? You're way too young to have seen this.
I have two 7-year-olds that want. I was at the very tail end of it. I finished watching this 10 minutes before we started recording, and I had a 7-year-old who was upset at me because he couldn't finish watching the movie with me because I was already at the credits. So I completely understand what you mean by that.
Yeah, I mean, just like trick-or-treaters. I mean, we got little kids that came trick-or-treating that were in Ghostbuster jumpsuits. I mean, I find it just so amazing that, we're almost to 40 years here, and this movie still has an impact on popular culture.
We thank the parents for that.
Yeah, that's part of it too. Yeah.
Scott, what about you? What's your obvious 5-star rating?
Uh-oh. No sound, Scott.
We can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
Can we hear you, Scott? Can you hear us? What we might have you do is drop out of this and then drop back in with the same link. That usually fixes the problem. It's the simple problem of technology. You shut it off and you turn it back on and it works.
I'm an IT guy, so I get it.
Yeah. So we'll have Scott try to do that for us here. As we wait for him to come back, I'm going to throw it off to our last 2 questions, and I'll ask Scott this when he comes back too. What is your favorite Ghostbuster? And what is the one movie you would pair with Ghostbusters for an ultimate double feature? You cannot pick another Ghostbusters movie, by the way.
Well, that's just not right.
Too simple.
I've got it.
Simple. Sam, you got yours?
It. Yeah,
okay,
obviously, my favorite Ghostbuster is Egon Spengler. He's the only one of the Ghostbusters that knows how to do his job. That's not true. Winston does too, but Egon's the reason this whole movie happened. So Egon is 100% my favorite Ghostbuster. I love him. And if I was going to double feature Ghostbusters with any movie that wasn't Ghostbusters, I would pair it with another Bill Murray classic from my childhood that I watch way too much, which is What About Bob? One of the greatest Bill Murray performances in What About Bob? I love that movie. I love Ghostbusters. So yeah, that would be my double feature.
Mm-hmm.
I have a good answer for this because you were not very specific, and I'm going to take every ounce of it here. My favorite Ghostbuster is going to be Rick Moranis because by the end of Ghostbusters 2, he becomes a Ghostbuster.
He is a Ghostbuster.
So I will take it. So Rick Moranis for the win. He goes from being a possessed Keymaster to a Ghostbuster.
What's your double feature, though?
My double feature, I'm going to have a little bit of fun with this here. I'm going to stay in the wheelhouse of a little bit of a Bill Murray and Harold Ramis, and I'm going to have to go with Stripes. Because, I mean,
Stripes is great.
For the sake of, the cast and the director and everything like that, to go from basically the horror comedy that is Ghostbusters to the military action comedy that Stripes is, and it still holds that same kind of punch for what, as a child, I probably should not have been watching Stripes. As an adult, I really enjoy Stripes. So it's definitely one of those adult fun comedy duos.
Brandon, do you have your favorite Ghostbuster and a double feature for this movie?
Well, growing up, it was always Egon. And then as an adult, I realized I'm more like Ray. And so Ray has become my favorite Ghostbuster as an adult. Mm-hmm. I love how he gets so excited about everything, like the fire station and going down the pole. Mm-hmm. And
I gotta try this pole.
Yeah. like we talk about how Venkman wasn't kind of into it until the end, where Dan Aykroyd he was in it from the beginning. I mean, he was just rare and ready to go. Everything was just amazing and awesome to him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for a double feature, I would say Ghostbusters pairs well with another Ivan Reitman film, Evolution.
Oh, there you go.
I've not seen that.
Sometimes I forget that that's a Reitman film.
Yeah, it's basically a Ghostbusters movie with aliens.
And Sean William Scott.
Yeah.
I dig that even more. Oh my god,
Yeah.
I'm in. What's this movie called?
David Duchovny, so Mr. X-Files with Stifler and Orlando Jones.
And Julianne Moore.
All right, we're scrapping
God.
Kindergarten Cop. We're doing this movie instead. Sorry, Sam.
That's okay. This movie sounds way more. I love Kindergarten Cop, but
God,
and Evolution has a cameo by Dan Aykroyd.
That's right.
yeah, I'm in.
Right.
I'm in. That's my next 5-star movie on Letterboxd. I can feel it already.
Scott, the question is, if you were going to pair Ghostbusters with another movie for a double feature that is not another Ghostbusters movie, what are you picking? And who is your favorite Ghostbuster?
I'm gonna say my favorite Ghostbuster is Bill Murray on there. Venkman is, just because he was that everybody was very scientific and they were all these serious doctors, and then here he comes in and he's being just this guy that's it's a hustle for him, and I just thought that was funny. And of course, I'm gonna agree and say Spengler, Harold Ramis, of course. I mean, you love him because he's got this that charm and that intelligence, and he's just this. He fits that part so well. It's hard for me to pick because I love them all. And then of course when Rick Moranis later becomes a Ghostbuster, that's like awesome too. In the second one, the movie that I would pair with it, for me, I think I'd do a double feature like Beetlejuice. I think that'd be kind of
yes,
because Beetlejuice just you got Keaton in there. You got the afterlife stuff. He's a ghost. It's that era, so that would be my choice. Or double feature would be those two movies together.
Oh yeah, I'd watch the hell out of that double feature. That's awesome.
Yeah. My favorite Ghostbuster is Egon. Just far and away because Harold Ramis is just one of my favorite, just underrated actors. I think a lot of people don't give him enough credit for what he does in the movies that he's in. I think obviously Bill Murray,
writer and director.
And he's just one of the great Hollywood greats of that era, and I think he gets overshined, especially for like movies like this. Any movie that he's in with Bill Murray, he gets overshined for obvious reasons. Like, yeah, Bill Murray's the big flashy movie star, but Harold Ramis comes in with some of the best lines and gets he has the writing credits and is a great director as well. So Egon is my favorite to the Ghostbusters. The double feature I'm going to go with, and I'm going to slightly break my rules in a way, is I'm going to pair this with Casper because Dan Aykroyd shows up as a Ghostbuster in Casper, so it's technically within the same universe. It's the best Ghostbusters sequel. I mean,
and that's a good pairing, I think, because
and you go from like the 80s kids comedy, like this would a lot of kids of the 80s grew up obviously with Ghostbusters. 90s kids, you had Casper was a big horror comedy of the time. So pairing those two together is a nice fun combo.
That's a solid double feature.
I just shake my head.
Casper's a good movie.
I haven't watched Casper in a while. I think I need to remedy that. It just popped back into my head. I'm like, God, I own that movie. I just need to throw it on soon.
That's a good movie. All right, boys, we're going to wrap this thing up here. Let's get into obviously some things that we got going on and some things that the South Dakota Ghostbusters have going on as well. As I said at the top of the show, we are talking about Ivan Reitman movies all month long. We are talking Kindergarten Cop next week, if I'm not mistaken. That is next week's episode. So that one, by a landslide, won our Arnold Schwarzenegger Ivan Reitman poll.
As it should have.
poor Junior and Twins did not stand a chance in that. Kindergarten Cop was far and away the most voted on movie for that. So we're going to be talking about that.
Oh, it's far and away the best movie of those three. So.
It's top three for sure. But let's throw it off to the Ghostbusters. Brandon and Scott, what do the South Dakota Ghostbusters have coming up soon? Anything you guys have?
Well, really, Halloween is like the end of our season. I mean, we are extremely busy in October usually, and we kind of just end our season the 31st, and then this year obviously is a little different because we have the movie coming out, and so we'll make an appearance for the movie. But yeah, we really don't pick anything back up until February. We usually do the mall walk for Lifescape. About the first event of the year.
That's awesome. And if people want to follow you guys online to keep up with everything you guys do, where can they find you guys online?
Well, we're on Facebook, South Dakota Ghostbusters. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. Just look for South Dakota Ghostbusters and you should be able to find us.
Awesome.
And we actually get hit up to dispose of real ghosts, which is kind of
every once in a while. Yeah, we get requests that people think that we're actually paranormal investigators. That's always interesting.
Are you? Because Casey and I had a paranormal experience the other day.
Uh-oh.
We were at the Orpheum Theater and a ghost kicked our seat and it whispered something in my ear and breathed on my neck. It was really weird.
And it got really cold.
It did. It got really cold. It was ridiculous.
I would like to point out that I was not part of said conversation. These guys are just weird.
It definitely happened. The Orpheum is known to be haunted, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, we could talk hours about paranormal stories. I can assure you.
That's the first one I've had. It was weird. I was like, no, this doesn't happen to me.
I'm just gonna say I've seen some things. I've seen shit that'll turn you white.
All right, we're going to have this conversation at some point. I love ghost stories, so this will definitely have to happen. Let's get into our plugs really quick before we end the show. If you like this podcast, you want to hear more, you want to hear the rest of our Ivan Reitman series coming up, you can subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and on YouTube. Brian, where can they find us on the socials?
On the socials at Backlot 605. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd HQ. And on Facebook, we also have the South Dakota Film Community Group of film enthusiasts, film podcasters like ourselves, filmmakers. We just enjoy talking about film. Join the conversation. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Samuel.
And if you like this and you want more, you can always support us on Patreon, where you get 4 bonus episodes a month. Typically they're on new releases and or cult films that are relevant to the time. This month we actually do have a Ghostbusters Afterlife episode that will be Patreon exclusive. We're also covering Last Night in Soho, that Netflix movie with Dwayne Johnson. And
that's what it's called. That Netflix movie with Dwayne Johnson.
That Netflix movie with Dwayne Johnson. It's like, is it Notice? Is it Red?
Red Notice.
Red Notice. Okay,
Red
that's
Notice.
what I thought. Yes. I couldn't remember. And then there's a 4th movie that we're covering.
The Eternals.
That I have. The Eternals. That's right. That's also coming out this month. There's a lot coming out this month. So those are our 4 movies that we'll be covering on Patreon. You can also do like some Patreon exclusive polls, that type of stuff. And yeah, we'd love to hang out with you guys on Patreon. So get that bonus episodes.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you to Brandon and Scott for joining us today, guys. This was an absolute pleasure to have you guys on and talk Ghostbusters and get your insight and knowledge, everything Ghostbusters. Thank you guys so much for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, and me and Brandon have to do the Ghostbuster point.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Wait.
There we go.
We're ready to believe you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. For Sam Lenz, Brian Mensing, I'm Casey Kelderman. Thank you all for watching and listening. We'll see you next time on the Backlot of South Dakota. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.